Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be providing a long-term market analysis for Curve. I'll be covering some key support and resistance levels to watch out for, the Bitcoin ratio pair, and talking about a potential longer-term accumulation zone. So if you guys enjoy the content, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also feel free to check out our sponsors and partners over at ftx.us. You can sign up with the link in the description below and get a 5% discount on your exchange fees. It's a great exchange. I highly recommend them. All right, so let's dive into Curve here. Basically, since my last video a few weeks ago, I actually talked about how, we were having this big level around $1.15, which was the triple bottom that we had back in the summer of 2021. And you can see since then we've actually moved back above that. So it's a great sign. We're consolidating here. We're holding it as support. So it looks pretty positive in the short term. And we've also started to have more and more retests of support off the moving averages I covered in the last video. Again, this is a band of the 20-day simple moving average as well as the 21-day exponential moving average. And basically I was pointing out the fact that we were holding this as resistance for a very long period of time, and this was sort of where all the lower highs were forming. We kept rejecting, forming lower lows, and eventually we had this rejection here in June, came down, formed a higher high, and then broke back above it, and then we flipped it into support. So my last video around this time frame, I said, hey, this is a good sign. We're flipping it into support. We could potentially have a continuation higher, and we've been having more and more retests of support. So it's a good sign to see that it continues to hold on each retest. And essentially we're just kind of right up here consolidating just above it. So overall it does look pretty good in the short term, and I would like to see a little bit more continuation. I would like to see it push higher because you can see the rally had a pretty aggressive move up, really just going at a quick rate of change, and since then we've started to sort of slow our pace. All of these higher highs are a little bit more subtle in the fact that they're just a few percent higher. So ideally I would like to see maybe a trend break of sort of this very subtle higher high structure, because this looks like a little bit of a weakening trend, but that's sort of in the short term. I do want to talk a little bit more about the long term, which is going to be very important to look at on the Curve Bitcoin pair. And I think this is best to look at on, say, a weekly time frame, because really what we're looking at here is what I believe to be an accumulation zone. And accumulation is typically when you have a pretty big decline and then you have a period of consolidation where essentially you trend sideways, you have people accumulating positions for a longer term stance, and eventually after this accumulation, after this sideways period, you get a breakout. So in just a bit here, I'm going to be looking at some other charts in other different cryptocurrencies throughout the years and just give you a general idea of what accumulation looks like, what that structure really means in sort of a longer term trend. And it really does mean some sort of trend reversal. You can see this big downtrend since the inception, the launch, and we've just had that big downtrend, and now we've transitioned into the sideways accumulation zone. We've got the support that is at around 3,500 Satoshis, and then the resistance at around 10,000 Satoshis. So it's a pretty big range overall. And that is one of the unfortunate things, is it's such a volatile move to go from the low of the range to the top of the range. So you can get these pretty big swings in price action, but you're still generally consolidating within this region. So what I mean by that is you have, say, this move from February into March, that was a negative 63% drop. But you were still just within the range. You were consolidating, you were going sideways. So that is sort of the drawdown with this being such a big range, is the fact that it will be pretty volatile. And what I'm looking for in the longer term is, we've got the base being formed. It's all there. It's a very long period of consolidation. What I want to see from here is a reclaim of the highs, which is again around 9,500 to 10,000 Satoshis. And for me, when we do reclaim that range high, that for me is going to mark the beginnings of a new longer term uptrend. And you might say, hey, well, wait a minute, we are in an uptrend. We're up 100% off these lows. And while that is true, we're still in this general accumulation zone. We're still going sideways. We're still at the same price we were back in January of 2021, and we don't really have a definitive longer term uptrend. So I just want to switch over to some charts here that kind of give a general idea of what an accumulation structure looks like and what we can look for in terms of beginning a new longer term uptrend. So I've got three examples I want to show you here. I'm going to start off with Ethereum Bitcoin all the way back in 2016, just because I think it has a pretty good structure behind it. You can see the big downtrend sort of ends here in October of 2015. You get the break of the downtrend. Maybe you move above or maybe you move below the range, but essentially you're just consolidating, you're going sideways, and you've broken the longer term downtrend. You've broken the structure, you begin to accumulate, you go sideways, and then eventually from there, you form the new uptrend and then you break out, okay? And if I zoom out here, again, you get that longer term uptrend, that reversal into this new longer term uptrend. And we can see this with, again, another example here. You got the accumulation, you go from this decline, this downtrend into the sideways period. You go sideways. Again, maybe you get a move above the range, maybe you get a move below it. Ultimately, doesn't matter. The longer term accumulation is there. And then you go into that new uptrend if I zoom out here. So last example here is BNB all the way back in 2017. Again, similar thing. You get the downtrend, you have a pretty steep decline, and then you go sideways. You get maybe a move above it, maybe a move below it. It doesn't matter. You're still in this range bound environment. You're going sideways, and then eventually from there, you form higher highs, you form higher lows, and you transition into that new longer term uptrend. So that's what I'm looking for Curve here. Again, we're having that move above the range, a move below the range. These are just deviations. These aren't really anything to get excited about. What we can get excited about, again, on the longer term is a definitive break above the range high at around 9,500 Satoshis. So just as an illustration, what that would look like, and again, I'm not saying this has to happen. We could have a break of this range high in a few years, in a few months. I ultimately don't know. But when we do have that break, that is when I'm going to get excited for a longer term uptrend. So again, what that would look like is just kind of turning around. Maybe we get up to this level and breaking above this, holding it as support, consolidating, and then we take out this high that was set back in January. All right, so if something like this happens for me, that means we've exited the accumulation zone, and then we're going to start forming that, again, uptrend that would ideally take us up to some of these higher valuations. But again, it's more or less just the general structure of accumulation going sideways, ending the bearish decline, and then preferably transitioning from the bearish decline into neutral sideways territory into a longer term uptrend. So that is what I'm looking for Curve on the longer term perspective. Again, it doesn't have to happen exactly like this. We could have a retest of the low, a retest of the high before that eventually happens. But just the goal here is seeing at some point or another a break of the range high, a takeout of this high back in January of 2022, and a new uptrend begin. And that's what this is looking like to me. This is looking like accumulation, where on the longer term perspective, we will have eventually at some point a break of those highs, again above the range high at 9,500 Satoshis, and then beginning a new uptrend where we break this consolidation we've been in for more or less a year and a half. So I hope you guys did enjoy the content and the analysis. Once again, check out our sponsors over at ftx.us in the link in the description below. With my referral code SNOWYCrypto, you can get a 5% discount on your exchange fees. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.